Welcome to the Devy Digest powered by League Winners. I'm Andy, and today we're talking players to sell before their values plummet. We're talking about the 2024 NFL rookie class, the Devy class of 25 and 26, and CFF assets. I have a special guest to help me cover the topic at hand today, and we'll cover all this and more after the intro. What is going on, everyone? Today I am joined by the one and only SC Romero. SC, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Just vibing with that intro music you have, man. That was a chill vibe. I enjoy it. But no, man, excited to talk some Devy with you as always. You're the guy I go to when it comes to some Devy news as well. So excited to hype on the show with you.
I appreciate it, man. Now, before we get into today's show, everyone on X, you can find SC at the PPR show. Now, SC, tell the people about yourself and how you got into content creation.
Yeah, man. So it started, when I started playing Dynasty and everything, I would listen to the fantasy footballers, shout them out. Great podcast, great guys to listen to. They're very engaging, very active, very funny. And they always said they started, talking about their league, and that's how they got where they're at. So I had a league, BRB, one of my long reigning Dynasty leagues going into year 5 now. And I got the guys together and said, hey, how would you like me to talk about your league? And one thing led to another, start talking about it. And now here we are today at the PPR show, being on the show with you.
Nice. Now, you also do some IDP work, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I try to
Okay,
be in the
good.
IDP and Devy side. So
Okay, good. Because I do have some possible IDP guys that might need some help with here. Now, we are going to start off with some quick hitters of the day. Now, we have New Mexico State quarterback Diego Paiva. He transfers to Vanderbilt. Washington quarterback Austin Mack transfers to Alabama. Auburn quarterback Robbie Ashford transfers to South Carolina. Alabama cornerback Des Riggs transfers to Texas A&M. Freshman sensation for Alabama, Caleb Downs. He has entered the portal. It looks like he is possibly going to Georgia or Ohio State. Duke defensive back Brandon Johnson transfers to Oregon. Washington Jabir Mohammed enters the portal. He is visiting Texas and Alabama, but it looks like he's leaning towards Texas. South Alabama promotes Major Applewhite as their new head coach. Cliff Kingsbury, he is set to interview with the Chicago Bears for their offensive coordinator position. And then one player that I want to talk about is 2024 incoming freshman Arizona quarterback Damon Williams Jr. He enters the portal, and he is someone that is very exciting. He's someone that I'm happy to talk about right now. Typically, we only talk about one freshman player profile, but with him entering the portal, I want to get everyone aware of this guy. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. He's a 4-star in the composites and as high as quarterback number 3 and as low as quarterback number 23. He averages out to be quarterback 16 in the class, and he's my quarterback 7 of the 24 class. Let's get this right out of the way. He has a small frame. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. So that is going to cap his upside for the NFL. He's going to have to be someone that absolutely balls out like a Kyler Murray. Now, the lowdown on him, he doesn't need a clean pocket to operate. He has very good mobility. He's a very speedy guy, real true dual threat quarterback. He throws a lively ball. The ball just jumps out of his hands. He escapes pressure, keeps his eyes up while he's scrambling, so it allows him to navigate the field and decide where he wants to go with it. Good ball placement. And he's an absolute Houdini when it comes to making plays. Very Kyler Murray-esque in that aspect. Now, he does throw to tight windows, so he is okay to do that. and he's a very electric playmaker. Now he is set to visit Washington, and he does have a clear path to start day one if he does end up at a Washington. Now at Washington right now, their receiving room is very bare. All they really have is Jeremiah Hunter, and he should be there to help bail him out. Now, Jed Fish was able to get him to commit to Arizona when they already had Noah Fafita locked in. In a Devy draft, I don't think you need to take him at all. You don't really need to go that early. As far as a C2C, in in those sub drafts, I don't ever recommend ever taking a quarterback early. But if he's there in round four, he's someone that I'm strongly going to consider. Now, SC, as we take a look at the quick hitters that are happening, what are your takes on the happenings right now?
If we're just talking some IDP, one that Austin Mack to Alabama, I was a big fan of him. I was looking forward to him being at Washington, but now he's going to Alabama, so that's someone to keep an eye on when it comes to those quarterbacks for me. The IDP, I mean, A&M grabs a nice ball hawking, speedy cornerback there. I think that's a great fit. He was a 2024 original, but he reclassified to that 2023, so that's why he was in college this year. And then Caleb Downs, he was a great safety for him as well. So watching him will be exciting. Brandon Joseph is the one that really pops out to me, just because he's going to be partnering up with Jacoby Savage from Kansas State. So they have two new cornerbacks coming in that Oregon in general, man, I've been really loving what they've been doing, getting these guys in the transfer portal. I think they've been hitting on all cylinders, defense and offense. And adding Brandon Joseph again with Kobe Savage, I think is going to be great. You did mention Muhammad, that he's leaning towards Texas. That makes sense. He's a guy from DeSoto, Texas, so he's going back home. And Texas is entering the SEC. I think that's very attractive to a lot of people now. Not that they weren't attractive in the Big 12, but it's the SEC. And when you're talking the Power Four, we're probably going to be talking about the SEC a lot, regardless of Nick Saban leaving. There's still lots of talent there in that division.
Now, we don't do much NFL talk here, but when it does, possibly involve the 101 and Caleb Williams, we
Mhm,
have to talk about it. Cliff Kingsbury, he's
mhm.
set to interview with the Bears for their vacant OC position. Is this something where the GM is trying to get some smoke and mirrors, trying to hype up that value and get teams who are further down to ante up more and to offer the Bears more because they really don't want Caleb and they're going to pay Justin Fields? Or is this a legit, hey, the Justin Fields experiment hasn't worked for us. The GM that's there didn't draft him. The coach that's there didn't pick him. So Justin Fields is kind of on an island. What do you think about this?
Um, Leaning more towards the slopes, man. The thing is, if the Atlanta Falcons offered the 108, which is the rumor that had happened for Justin Fields, they should have smashed accept that. That's the best you're gonna get for him. You're not getting anything above it. You're not getting a first in the next couple of years. It's just not happening. He's an aging quarterback. Why would you give up a first for that when you can have other things, right? I just don't see that necessarily happening for him. Aging as he's just older. He's a veteran now, but. Uh, the 101 I think has more value considering Caleb Williams is probably a franchise quarterback, right? Generational talent is what you're hearing by him. So I think it's just smoke. Just have people saying, "Hey, fine, if y'all don't want it, we're gonna go ahead and take it. And we'll have Justin Fields and Caleb Williams," because I don't see them taking Caleb Williams and not trading Justin Fields. And again, if the Falcons offer that 108, you should have smash accepted it.
I'm personally on the side of you keep Justin Fields. He's had, what is it, four offensive coordinators now in the
Mhm,
last 5 years to be, because they're gonna have a new one. And what he's done on the field, he's shown some flashes. Now, it hasn't been perfect, but neither has the entire team. He doesn't have an offensive line to help them.
mhm,
Before this year, his wide receiver one was Darnell Mooney. I mean,
mhm,
we're talking about guys that don't do anything. And the Bears have fixed their defense. Justin Fields is there. He can extend plays, bail his team out. If people are thinking Caleb Williams is going to be there and Caleb is going to get the ball out on time and in rhythm, they haven't seen USC play. They haven't seen Caleb Williams play. Caleb Williams is possibly worse than Justin Fields, with holding onto the ball for dear life. They will just hold onto the ball, see what they can do, create. So all you're doing if you're trading Justin Fields is, you're hoping to get draft capital back, and all you're doing by getting Caleb is just resetting that cap by just
Right.
going another 4 or 5 years for a rookie cap. But I don't
Right.
know. Like I think it would be wise if they are trying to do these smoke and mirrors and try to get Washington, New England, and maybe, if there's a dark horse team out there that really wants Caleb to pony up
Mhm.
and really offer it. So I don't know. I'm not real too sure, but I know we're going to talk about Caleb later on, because next for the body of the show, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 NFL rookie class. We're going to do that first. We're going to break it down by position. Then we're going to give you some sells for C2C for Devy, for CFF. But SC, let's start with you first. Who are you selling in the 2024 NFL rookie draft class, and why?
Right now, I'm selling Caleb Williams, man. If you have that 101, I think this is heavy value. You kind of hit it on the nail when you were just talking about everything right now with him and Justin Fields. If he's the 101 and goes Chicago right now, things can change. You're looking at the draft board. I see Chicago, Washington, and the New England Patriots all taking quarterbacks in the mock. Really, I don't think the Bears need it. I like Justin Fields. Give him some a good offensive coordinator. Drake May, I mean Washington. I really liked how Sam Howell played, and then you have New England, where I think they just need a good wide receiver. They just don't have that. Sell Caleb Williams because he's at a high. He's again generational talent. When you have those words attached to you, go ahead and sell them. Go get Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart. I'm high on Oregon. That's just me, but I think that's could be an exciting, explosive duo there. Or you know what? Go get Jordan Love because we saw what he's about at that pro level. He balled out what I think he finished as QB4 with no wide receivers, technically, right? No one that popped out during the draft time at that time. So they get him an alpha, if you will. That's something big. Or even Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow right now is at a low just because he had an injured season. He's obviously an elite quarterback. So if you can go ahead and trade it, straight up, I would do that. Joe Burrow for him because Joe Burrow's paired with Jamar Chase at the moment.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you have anyone else at the quarterback position that you're willing to sell on in this class?
Yeah, another one is Jaden Daniels. We've talked about him on our Devy show with Dynasty Pros as well. That just a little bit down on him. Again, he did ball out this year. Nothing against what he did this year, but I think a lot of it was the wide receivers that he had. So if you can go trade him and a second round pick for CJ Stroud, I would do that because we now seen CJ Stroud do it at that pro level. If you're going for the CFF value, maybe a Caden Salter and a rookie second round pick plus a Devy second or third pick. I think that's something that Caden Salter, I don't know what he would be as a pro, but I know he's going to be great at Liberty again this next year. And then plus you're getting some draft capital back in return. So I just think Jaden Daniels as well is at all-time high. He might test well at the combine. He might go top 3, and that's going to be big. But I don't know if his value is going to get higher than what it is.
Yeah, Jalen Daniels is gaining a lot of steam lately, and he's probably the most polarizing quarterback in the class. Some people really love him. They compare him to the next Anthony Richardson as far as his ability to make plays with his feet and with his arms. But, there are question marks of, was he being propped up by Brian Thomas Jr. and, Malik Neighbors, so
Mhm.
there are some questions out there with Jaden Daniels, but he is very polarizing. Some people, they really believe that he'll be a top 10 pick. And, if that's the case and you're holding him and you have any, second guess, second thoughts, you should definitely see what's out there in your league. For me, for the quarterbacks, I'm trading, or I'm trying to sell off Michael Penix. I've been advocating that. We had a Devy Digest article that came out on the day of the national championship where, we said you should be selling him because there are times where the ball will float on him. He trusts his arm too much. He doesn't set his feet, and we saw that in the national championship game. And one thing that I mentioned in that article that I wrote is he's only been sacked 9 times. So the Washington line kept him upright. What happens when he goes to the NFL and he goes to a very bad offensive line? What's going to happen? We saw Michigan, in that national championship game, Michigan just tortured him all night long and he just unraveled. So he's someone that
Mhm.
I'm willing to trade. You're probably not going to get peak value as you would have after the Texas game. But if I can trade up to get like a Brock Purdy or a Trevor Lawrence, even a Jared Goff, and then something on the CFF side, or maybe even a fourth or a fifth round sub pick in a C2C, I would definitely do that. The other player that I would sell is Drake May, and it's not for the talent. It's I'm always trying to move up and get to that established quarterback, and the rookie hype, the rookie craze is at an all-time high right now. So I would try to capitalize on trading Drake May. If Drake May ends up at, say, Washington or New England, Washington, maybe, but if he goes to New England, good luck with that. So
Mhm.
I would try to sell him. If I could get Joe Burrow on the cheap because he's been hurt and a Joe Burrow manager might be down on him, and they're seeing Drake May. They're seeing all these Dynasty FF accounts hyping up Drake May with his great arm, and he's a true dual threat quarterback. If I can get Joe Burrow for Drake May straight up, I would do it. But he's
Mhm.
someone that if I could get Dak or even Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, and something else on the college side, I would definitely do that. So those are the quarterbacks that I would move off of in this class. If you have any
Yeah.
comments, you can jump on in. But if not,
Yeah.
do you have any running backs?
Yeah, I'll get to my running backs here in a sec. Question though, Drake May for Kirk Cousins, would you do that?
I would need a sweetener because for
Right.
me, I'm thinking Cousins maybe has 2 to 3 years left at
Right.
most, being like his typical top 12
Right.
quarterback. So if I can get a sweetener, like say, if I if I'm offered Kirk Cousins for Drake May, I would want at least a starting flex option on the NFL side, and then maybe like I would try to squeeze for a second round sub pick in a C2C. If I get countered with a third or a fourth, I probably would do it, but that's only if I get Cousins, a reliable flex option on the NFL side, and then like a third or a fourth in a C2C sub draft. I would do that for Drake May.
For sure. I like that too, especially if you're a competing team, right? I think that
Yeah,
makes sense. Obviously, if you're a rebuild, go May, but if you're competing, I think that's good. I think people will be lower on Cousins too, lower than they would
yeah,
Burrow. And like you said, I mean, if he comes back and he just performs, he's a top 12 quarterback.
yeah.
So, I think he is a free agent this year, but yeah, I would do that too. So I like that analysis there. Some running backs here. Jonathan Brooks. People may be down on him because he was injured, but if you watch his tape, he could be argued as the RB1 of this class. So I think come like combine pro days, come towards that draft, he might be a little bit more hyped. So if you get to him and you have a Rashad White, I would try to pair him and Rashad White for Bijan. Rashad White had a great year. He was RB5 on the season, I think. For Bijan, I think was either RB9 or RB10. He was right there with Jamar Gibbs as well. So if you can sell on that upside, I would. Bijan's still a talented guy, and we're gonna blame. I don't want like pointing fingers. We're gonna blame the entire season on Arthur Smith. Just how he used that backfield. You get a running back like that, you want him in the game, and I don't care if he's calling you a dummy for doing a bad play. He is a talented athlete. You put him in the game. You don't take playmakers like him out. So sorry, Arthur Smith, but that was your fault. So, but for us, it's great. Buy low if he's a buy low for you right now, right? My other running back, Blake Corum, another running back that I think is going to skyrocket in value. I think people are just going to fall in love with him. One of your Michigan guys had a great outing during the national championship, had a great outing all year. Just a running back that found the holes, found the end zone, knew how to get there. One thing I would try to do if you can trade a add him plus a 25-second for like Josh Jacobs and Kamani Vidal from Troy. Josh Jacobs is still a young back. I feel every year, not just this year, but it's going to happen this year, we forget about him and how good he is. And guess what? Every year he's a top running back. He just continues to dominate. He's 25, going to be 26 next season. Go and get him. He's a young running back that probably has at least 2 years as a top elite running back for you. So if you can get that for him, do it. Another one, if you can get Quinshawn Junkins in a third, just because I think there's a slight dip on Quinshawn because he went to Ohio State and now Travion Henderson is going back there. Slight dip. He's still a talented running back, still arguably one of your RB1s of that class, but maybe not so much now that Travion Henderson is back, right? And that was the RB1 coming out for a lot of people this year. Now going back, how's that going to work out? They've both had the backfield to themselves the past couple of years, really. And now you have this coming out where they're now combined. How's it going to work? Are they going to split time? Is it going to be Travion's year and Quinshawn's just going to learn and be better in the following year because he ends up staying? What's going to happen? So I think you buy that dip on him. Blake Corum, again, looks great. Looks like he could be a running back that finds those holes, finds those end zones, gets you a lot of touchdowns. But also it's the NFL and things are different in the NFL. Sell high on him while you can.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk lately about Blake Corum, how, if you have him, you should be hanging on to him. He's going to gain value and all this. And I love Michigan. I have a Charles Woodson signed jersey back there and a JJ McCarthy. I love Blake Corum. He is the heart and soul of that team. I compared him to Mike Hart when he was a true freshman. I love Blake Corum. But at the NFL level, I just don't see it. He is probably going to come in at 5'7", probably around 212, 215 pounds. He's not a burner. He has adequate hands, but he doesn't really have that profile that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it in him. So yeah, if you can trade up and get a Josh Jacobs, because if whoever has Josh Jacobs in your league, they're probably down on him. Josh Jacobs missed the end of the season. He was just protecting himself. He probably could have played if he had a contract, if the team really cared about him. But Josh Jacobs, he was like, you know what? I'm going to sit out. I want to be fine. I'm going to play for a new team. Like you said, he's only 25. So I think people are out on Josh Jacobs because they think he's really older than he really is. So, yeah, I think Josh Jacobs, I mean, we're talking about sells, but I think Josh Jacobs is a buy this offseason in all of your leagues because the people that have him, they loved him 2 years ago. This year, he was a huge disappointment, and the Raiders have Zamir White, so Josh Jacobs will be looking for a new home. So I think that's a really good player that you brought up. For the running backs, the two that I have, they're more on the higher end. Braylon Allen, to me, he's AJ Dillon. That's what I see. I mean, Derrick Henry, I guess, but I mean, I see AJ Dillon. That's who I see. These 6'1", 240-pound backs. It's just not the way the NFL is built today. The NFL today wants those 5'10", 210 backs. Like that's why these running backs that I look for in college, I like running backs who are 5'10", 210 because that's what the NFL likes. And if you have that receiving profile, I like you too. Braylon Allen, I know he's the consensus RB1, but to me, I just don't see it. And people are going to say he's 20, he's young, he's going to improve. But we saw last year with Izzy Abakanda, can never pronounce the last name. He was 19. He was at Pitt. He tested really well, had all the stats. He didn't go until like the 5th round to the Jets. Now he's, platooning with Breece Hall, but he's not going to ever win the job. So if you have Izzy, there's really no value there. So I don't buy into him being 20 at draft time and being 19 now as being a plus. I see that being as a negative. The other running back that I'm going to talk about is running back that you like. I'm going to talk about Trey Benson. Now,
my guy.
Yeah. Now Trey Benson, he had that big injury at Oregon, as I believe it was in his 2019 season, 2020 season at Oregon. So he missed out. He transferred to Florida State. At Florida State, he was never a workhorse. They always use a three-back system. So that's one question I have is his durability. At times when I'm watching him, he's a little too patient for running the ball. And when he does that, he's waiting for his blocks to form. A couple of them form, and he doesn't know which hole to take. So I don't really
Mhm,
trust his vision at the next level. And then I he's not a fluid mover when I watch him. There's a lot of choppiness, a lot of wasted motion. Now I know you like him. I
mhm.
know you do. So, what's your take on them? But with these guys, I would try to sell for Josh Jacobs is a good one that we talked about.
Mhm.
I I would try to get Saquon because people might think he's
Love that.
on that he's on that cliff, and he might not be a Giants next year. So if you can get like a Saquon, Josh Jacobs, even if we tier down and then you can get something on the college side for a year or two, I would do that. But
Mhm.
if you have Braylon Allen, he's the RB1. A lot of teams are going to offer you something good, so I would definitely see what I could get for Braylon Allen if you have any shares of him.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree with that too, and that's simply because if consensus is saying he's the RB1, I don't think he is for either of us. But if consensus is that, yeah, some guys will just read right into that and be like, "Oh, we gotta take him." And you brought up Izzy. I'm gonna go a year back and bring up Isaiah Spiller, same kind of back where he was 19, 20 years old coming into the draft, and he looked great at A&M. And then he shot behind Austin Eckler, and it still doesn't look like it's his backfield. Who, the name's drawing a blank on me right now, but the guy went in and came up over him and had a better season for him, with the backs. I can't think of his name for the Chargers right now, but so I would think that's a great buy or a great sell there. And then yeah, if you can get Josh Jacobs, if you can go get a Rashad White, because for whatever reason, some people may also be like, I don't know if he's gonna be the back there next year. I would do that too. Saquon Barkley is definitely a buy this year. The guys that have him in your leagues either love him and they're not going to trade him, or they're starting to question like, okay, maybe he's getting old, he's been injured before, maybe this is a time to sell. So you can probably go get him, and yeah, that would be a great choice there. Trey Benson, it's funny because the cons you said about him are the pros I have for him. So the patience, I like the patience, but you're right. Sometimes he does wait a little bit too long, but I think sometimes he also, if he goes right out the gate and tries to explode through the hole, he gets blocked up. So he does wait for those blocks to happen. And his motion, you mentioned it's kind of fidgety. I see him as that one step back. When he makes that first initial cut, it's a deadly cut that it goes and it's effective, and then he hits that hole and he's gone. The workhorseness is sure that is a question mark because he hasn't really truly gone it. But then in games that they feed him, he goes out there and does really well. He's getting 80 plus yards or so. He's getting a touchdown. He's being effective in the game. So I love him. And for me, I'm a buying at him right now in the mock that I'm doing for that BRB league that I mentioned earlier. I have him going to me at 203, and that might be a little too early, but I think at that point he's the RB3 off the board for these guys. So yeah, if you can sell him, I mean, if you can up tier in him, go Josh Jacobs. I would. If I can get Saquon Barkley, I would definitely. But he's also one of my favorite guys in this draft when it comes to running backs. So just what side of the pool are you on? Are you on the hot side or the cold side for him?
Now, with this running back class, it is, let's be honest, not the greatest class. Do
Mm-hmm.
you see the first back being taken before pick 45 or after pick 45?
Trying to think what's after pick
After,
45.
yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
definitely after. I think and I'm not even mad if we see a running back go. Sorry, I was trying to pull up my rankings real quick. If we see a running back go in the second, but it's gonna be late second. I really think we might see the first one go in the third round, and that's not the running back class is weaker since we have Raheem Sanders and Travion Henderson going back, and a lot of our guys that are going back too. Um, Definitely weaker, but other positions are just so stacked.
Yeah.
There's a lot of linebackers alike. There's a lot of great offensive linemen that you're not even going to hear about come draft time for fantasy purposes, right? Because we don't play with offensive linemen. There's tons of wide receivers. I think 3 quarterbacks may go in the second round, with possibly 4 going in the first. We might see 7 in the first 2 rounds. So it's just a very stacked class where Yeah, I keep bringing up your point. When it comes to running backs, we see them go in the fourth round, but take off that round and a half because that's really their true value. So yeah, there's running backs in this draft. Currently, I have 21 ranked, and so that can all be day three picks, so maybe two or three in day two, and that's in the third round.
Now, it is a stacked wide receiver class.
Mhm.
Which of these wide receivers are you trying to sell?
Xavier Wardy's one of them. Probably about week 10, week 9, I started focusing more on Adonai Mitchell at Texas. And slowly but surely, I started to realize I think Adonai Mitchell's the better wide receiver in these two. Xavier Wardy's fast. He has the speed. He has the hands for sure. But I think he's at a high right now, and people will sleep on Adonai Mitchell. So I'd rather get him from Texas than Wardy. But if you can trade Wardy right now for a Jacob Cowing, who's someone I really like, and probably I might be too high on him, but someone that I love, a nice slot receiver, fast, quick, elusive, and like a Jaden Reed, a guy that might still have those question marks. The whole Packer wide receiver room, I feel, will be in question this offseason simply because they weren't that high draft capital buzz. But Jaden Reed balled out, and I think that's a great person that will build on with Jordan Love. So go and get him, or even like a Rasheed Rice. That's someone too where I think people still question who's the wide receiver one. Kansas City still needs to go and get that. They get one in the first round, say Brian Thomas Jr., Troy Franklin. Rasheed Rice value is gonna dip, but guess what? He kind of escalated and went up in his value because he became a target for Patrick Mahomes. Um, on the CFF side, one of your guys, if you can go get Kevin Concepcion, NC State guy, as well as a Devy second round pick, I would do that all day. I think because as a true freshman, he came out and balled out. So there's definitely more potential, more hype around him. And then you get a second round pick. You can go get someone in your supplemental drafts as well, and someone that could benefit. There's a nice receiving group, coming in for this freshman class, and even some guys that are probably still on your waiver wires. So I would do that for him. Another guy that I'm seeing a lot of hype around right now, we'll see what happens come combine, is Georgia's wide receiver, Lad McConkey. Um, he was their only target outside of Brock Bowers. The wide receiver room in Georgia was really obsolete to me. Lad McConkey's great. He was kind of that twitch kind of guy to me. He looked very finicky, if you will. When he got the ball in his hands, he was just kind of rubbery, just moving around so nice and smoothly. But I'm also not buying into that hype. If you can get Jerry Judy plus a second or third rookie round pick, I would. If you can get T. Higgins, if you're lucky, JSN. JSN didn't have the year people expected as a wide receiver one. I'd buy him all day. Also, if you're looking on the CFF value, I really like Silas Bolden. He's now at Texas, right? He came out. Or even Malachi Coleman at Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a team. My underdog team this year is gonna be Nebraska. Rayola, Dowdell, Malachi Coleman. I think they have great potential to be a nice team this year, and I want to buy everything I can from them.
Lad is someone that's real interesting. His analytics are really good. I was talking to Noah Green, and he was pointing me out. I believe his career yards per route run is like 2.7 or 2.9, something really good. And so his analytics are really good, but when you watch the film, with me, I've only watched the film on him. So when I
Mhm.
watch the film, I'm like, you know, he's just like a Hunter Renfro type. He's just gonna be a
Right.
slot guy. He might be something that's better for real life, not for fantasy.
Mm,
But then when I was talking to Noah, and Noah took a little deep dive on him, and he pulled up all
mm,
his metrics look really good. And after I saw his metrics and know his film, I'm like, okay, he could be a Chris Godwin type. And so he is someone that is real tricky to kind of value. I have him in my top 12, but he's the one player that I have no confidence in. Like, if you were to tell me that he is going to ball out and do really well as a rookie, I wouldn't be surprised. If you
mhm,
tell me he can't even get on the playing field and he's barely doing punt returns, that wouldn't shock me either.
mhm.
So to me, he's someone that's real tricky to read. Xavier Worthy, he's someone too. Like some people have him as high as wide receiver three, others don't even have him in the top 10. It's like I understand he has his drop issues and he doesn't have the greatest catch technique, but there's a lot of times on his film where he's 2, 3 yards wide open and Quinn
Hmm.
Ewers simply just misses him. Either he throws it out of bounds, he throws it too short, too long. So I think if Worthy would have caught maybe two or three of those, I think our mindsets would be different. But I
Hmm.
totally get why people are down on him and trying to sell him. Now, my two guys that I'm trying to sell at the wide receiver position, the first one is Roma Dunze. I know you're not gonna like that. His
Hmm.
dad's not gonna like that either. Sorry, James. But Roma Dunze, he's stiff. And that's something that people don't want to say. He's
Hmm.
stiff, and that's true. His hips are tight. He will never win on the next level with digs and outs. That's just simply the facts. He does slow down when he goes into those in and out breaking routes. And that split second when he slows down in the NFL, those corners are gonna catch up to you.
Hmm.
Maybe in college you can get away with that and it being a catch, but in the NFL, that's a pass deflected.
Hmm.
Now, he is great at vertical routes. So if you ask him to run just vertical routes, I can see him working at the next level. All the highlights that you see on X, on all these little snippets. They're all him being and running vertical routes. Like out for the Texas game, I saw that vertical route where he made that play maybe 100 times. Everyone kept reposting and saying, "Look how great he is." Yeah, it's a vertical route. He's a track guy. He's supposed to
Right.
do that. So and he was also in a system that allows for space and allows for freedom as a receiver to run routes.
Hmm.
How is he going to do in a timing based system? We saw it in the national championship game on that one fourth down play in the first half where it appeared that Rome had the option of going inside leverage or outside leverage. He chose inside. Penix thought he was going to work his way outside, and they had a miscommunication. So, how is he going to work in a timing based system at the next level? That I
Hmm.
don't know. The next player, before I get to the next player, I already know James is gonna send all this hate and he's gonna go onto his burner accounts and he's gonna make all these comments. I already know they're coming. So James, go ahead, fire up your phone and your burners and do whatever you gotta do. The next guy I'm gonna talk about is Keon Coleman. He's someone that has a lot of hype as well, and he's someone that just doesn't create separation. People comp him
Hmm.
to George Pickens, but he's not the same athlete as George Pickens. He's a contested catch guy who isn't that uber athletic. And this isn't 2005. If this was 2005, yeah, he would fit perfectly. With these two, I would try to get maybe a wide receiver two and probably try to get something on the CFF side for Rome since there is hype there. I see if I can get Brock Purdy. A lot of people are talking bad about Brock Purdy, but you know what? He's putting up numbers. So if I
Hmm.
could turn Roma Dunze into a Brock Purdy, even if I could get that straight up, I would do it in a Superflex league.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I like that you brought up Odunze. Right now, I do have him as wide receiver four for me, um, but I think the Michigan outing was a big outing, right? They kind of just shut him down. Like he just wasn't as effective as he's been all season, and that shows a lot there. Was it Michael Penix? Was it Odunze? It was just Michigan had a great defense there. So I definitely get that, and yeah, if you could trade up to, we talk about that pro progression, people that have shown it in the pros already. If you can get a T Higgins for him, I would do that all day. If you can get, if you're competing and could get Devontae Adams for him, yeah, why not? Just straight up. I mean, Adams is probably getting a quarterback this year, or that's the hope at least. Keon Coleman, I really love that. Currently, my wide receiver seven. Um, I think he's also someone that he flashed at the next level, at the not the next level in college, but I don't necessarily see if that's transitioning. If he is a George Pickens, if he gets the touchdowns and that's good, he's not gaining you crazy amount of yards every game. He's not hawking targets by any means. So if you're comping into that, then why aren't you trying to sell him? You know what I mean? Like he's someone that you definitely want to get, the guy that's going to get the volume, not just going to go in there and be second fiddle to Deontay Johnson. So I love that too. Yeah, if you can trade out for that, I would definitely do that. And I agree, people are sleeping on Brock Purdy.
Now, who are some of your Devy sells?
My biggest one right now is probably Drew Alar. I think there's still some hype to his name, right? But he really didn't showcase what we thought or wanted to see in this past season. But again, he's still some hype. But this quarterback class is going to shift in that 2025 class. We might see Alar stay again if he's eligible to, and then to have that because you have Shadir Sanders there, you have Quinn Ewers there. So I would go and get Arch Manning. Arch Manning's someone that is going to sit behind Quinn Ewers, but that's good because I'd rather him sit behind him than have his first year being in the SEC and him just completely go down. Let him sit behind Ewers, understand what Ewers is doing in the SEC, and then next season it's Arch Manning. So if you can buy on him, go do it. But also tack in maybe a second and fifth round supplemental pick for that, just because again, Drew Aller's a starter, Arch Manning is not as of right now. Or if you can add a couple 25 seconds and go get Deshaun Watson, I think Watson's a huge buy right now, simply because Flacco, balled out. He looked great until he came to Houston and just got shut out there as well. So I think that's a great buy. If you can go and get their younger running back or younger quarterback, excuse me, for a guy like Deshaun Watson. Another quarterback, DJU. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but he's not Florida State. Looked great at Oregon State. I just don't. Florida State is losing some weapons this year, and I don't know if DJU is gonna go in there and succeed. And I think this right now is your time to sell high on him because he had a great season at Oregon State. So if you go out there and get Dante Moore, who's sitting behind Dylan Gabriel, again, Oregon fans. So I get if you're not, big on the guy sitting behind them. I really, really like DJ Lagway. Shout out Willis, Texas, freshman quarterback going into Florida. I really, really like him. So if you can try to get him, let's go do that. If you can go and trade for like a wide receiver 2 in the NFL, I would do that. Higgins, maybe Dontavian Wicks, but if you're going after Wicks, go ahead and add a second in 2025, just because I think the risk, it's a super flex league, right? So quarterbacks always have a little bit more value, but I would also do something like that for my quarterbacks.
Yeah, I've been down on Drew Alar since before August. I went on to the Campus to Canton Campus Light Pod, and I talked about how he was my stock down guy. And so even back in August, I was saying, yeah, you should definitely sell Drew Alar. So I do wholeheartedly agree with that. Um, One guy I want to talk about that I'm trying to sell is Queen Ewers, and I forgot who said it on X, but it was when they were playing Washington, and this guy who actually does scouting for a living. I forgot who tweeted it, or else I would give credit. But he was saying that he was getting ready to be in a meeting. They were discussing about some guys, and this one guy said Queen Ewers is Drew Lock. And he was saying that ever since that guy told him that, he can't get that out of his mind. And after I read that, I can't get that out of my mind. It's like when I see Quinn Ewers, yeah, I see Drew Lock. And so Quinn Ewers is someone that I'm trying to sell if I have any shares of him. There were a time where people were saying he's going to be the quarterback 3 of this class if he were to you know go out. So he's someone that I do not like. He's someone that does not throw a good deep ball. His short to intermediate passes are okay, but he likes to work down the middle, and I just don't
Mhm.
see traits at the next level. He's loaded with weapons, so if you're trying to sell him, I think now's the right time because they have everyone at the wide receiver position. They're pretty much trying to get everyone in the portal. They're
Mhm.
trying to buy that championship for next year, and if they can
Mhm.
get it, all the power to them. But he's someone that I'm trying to sell. This next guy I'm trying to sell is someone that I know you really love, and that's Shador Sanders.
Yeah,
Now,
buddy.
when when Sean Lewis got demoted, the offense was not that good. I know he hurt his back, but I'm not a fan of Pat Shermer as the offensive coordinator. I know Prime is trying to get his son ready for the NFL, so they might run more of an NFL style offense where he's going to have to do, you know, second and third reads just so that he can show on the NFL tape that he can do that. Because when Sean Lewis was there, he knew the offensive line was horrible. They could not hold up for more than 2 seconds. So Shador
Mhm,
had to get the ball out fast. So, that offense was predicated on spacing, speed,
mhm.
and yak. And so we saw them do that, and we did see Shador throw, those nice deep balls when he had to. So he does have that on his tape, but I think people are living off of that Colorado State game. They're living off of the TCU game, and they're living off of the name. So if for me, if I have any shares of him, I'm definitely seeing what I can get. I'm definitely trying to see if I can upgrade to the NFL side. If I can get that quarterback 10 to 14 range, I would definitely do that because to me, when I look at Shador, I personally don't see him as a first round pick in next year's class. Now he can definitely prove me wrong. He's gonna have a full year under Shermer's system, and they brought in a lot of wide receivers to help him. So I can definitely be wrong on this, but as of now, what I'm seeing is I'm trying to sell Shador Sanders, and if I can get a borderline starting quarterback, I would do that. What are your thoughts, SC, on those two?
So Quinn Ewers, first I'll say damn you putting that Drew Lock image in my head too. Wish you didn't share that, but I mean it makes sense. And I was one of those guys that had him as QB3 if he were to come out. And I think personally, he did what he had to do, but personally, I think he made a mistake coming back. Don't get me wrong, if he goes out there and balls in the SEC, then I think we have to be like, oh snap, maybe he is legit. But I don't know if he does that. And right now, the offense to me isn't going to be as explosive as it was this past year. I love Baxter. Like I mentioned, they got Silas Bolden. They got some talent, but I just don't. I just think he's going down. Bo Nix stayed, and I think Bo Nix elevated his draft stock. I don't see that for Quinn Ewers. Shadir Sanders, man. To be quite real, I get that living off the first four games when they were looking great, and then they lost. Right, they were 4-0, and then they lost. I'm pretty sure majority of their games, almost every game. I mean, they were what 7-5, I think, or so. No, they weren't. They won 11
They
4 per
were
game, 4-10,
4-8,
8.
I think.
Yeah, they won 4. So off the first four games. So I get that. I love what I see in him. I think he is a nice passer. I think he could get the ball on the dime to his guys. This year we will see a lot more because Prime made a goal to go build up that offensive line, and he did. First, 2-3 days, he got a whole new line in the portal. So I think that is good. But at the same time, watch the I want to say smoke and mirrors, but I don't think that's the right analogy. But watch that because he's now in the Big 12. The Big 12 of the Power Four is the weakest conference.
Yeah,
So it's and that's not a down on their talent. They have some talented guys there, but of the Power Four, defensively, that is the weakest conference. So
yeah.
if he goes out there and ball, excuse me, awesome. I want him to. But at the same time, it's one of those guys and watch his tape. Does he go out there and ball and it's because he's playing talented defenders and he's actually getting pressure and still making the right moves and right reads? Or does he go out there and ball because the defenses aren't good? You know what I mean? So that's something you really have to pay attention to, even if he becomes a Heisman candidate. Go watch those games. Is he balling because he's great and he's doing it? Or is he balling because this class is actually pretty weak? And it could be something that we're like, oh, he's strong. And then he goes into playoffs and he continues to do it against an SEC team and a 12-team playoff, whatever it may be. Then it's like, okay, he does have it. But it could be what we saw happen in Florida State. Granted, not everyone played, but they got annihilated by Georgia. So it's something to definitely watch this season. I'll have my eye close on him. I'm a huge Colorado fan. I love what Prime is doing there, building that culture. I'm a huge Shador fan. He was my QB1. I'm excited to watch him. Still is my QB1 right now, by the way. But I will, hold that and really think about when I'm ranking him next year as well. Is it the competition level that he went down? Because we can argue that the Pac-12 this past year had great defenses. From Oregon having one, Washington had a pretty good defense. Utah, Oregon State, some pretty good defenses in there. So the competition level is definitely a downgrade for him.
Now, who are some of your running backs that you're trying to sell for Devy purposes?
So mine are some pretty big name guys. I feel like sometimes we're switching on you. You have big names, I have big names, vice versa. Raheem Sanders, um, going back again, someone where I think he may lower his draft stock. He really didn't going to South Carolina to me really didn't move the needle. It was kind of just like a vertical move, a plateau, if you will, horizontal move, excuse me, where it didn't go up or down. It was just like, okay, you're still in the SEC. Am I still getting the same one that you just kind of had an injured riddle year? Hopefully you're healthy. But I would go and trade for Austin Genty out at Boise State. I think that's an explosive running back, great for CFF, and might have some draft capital potential next year as well, and a third round pick. I think that's fair value, especially for running backs. You're not getting the first for him. I mean, you can if you have a fan, and he does have a strong um, career behind him. So yeah, if you can get that by all means. But Austin Jensen in the third, or if you could get J Spears, just because he was the backup to Derrick Henry, so you don't know if he's going to be the true back in Tennessee, and then a couple second round picks. One maybe in this year's draft, one in next year's draft. I would do that as well. Running backs are a little bit harder to sell, but I think with Raheem Sanders and that name alone, you can get that value. And my second guy is Ohio State's Travion Henderson. I think this is going to be a very interesting year seeing him and Quinshon Judkins pair together. What's going to happen? Is there going to be a clear cut RB1 or is there going to be an RB1A and 1B? Go trade for Nicholas Singleton. I think there's a down on him, right? Just because Katron came out and had a great year. But those guys, to me, are RB1A, RB1B. At any given time, they could switch over and be the team's top running back. I love Nick Singleton still. I would go get him. Or honestly, I would go get Quinshon. Just because people may be like, oh, he's the RB1. And I kind of think Quinshon's a little bit better. So I would go get him for him. If you can get Saquon Barkley, you mentioned it earlier. I think Travion coming out this year, he was consensus RB1 for most people. And so he has that name or that value on him right now. So if you're looking to trade before that season starts, before we start moving around our rankings again for next season, go and get a good RB1, an aging RB1, but still has some great talent behind him. I would definitely do that.
I think for me with Rocket was my RB1 for the longest time, so that one kind of hurt because he was someone that I absolutely love. I thought him going up to 240 pounds, I thought that would be perfect, but no, it wasn't at all. And
Mhm.
so I want to see him trim back down to about 220. I want to see him at least play the majority of the season and still show something. I mean, at South Carolina, while they have a great portal class and they brought in some guys that are going to be good, they're probably maybe fighting for 6 wins at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
for me with Rocket, I understand if people are trying to sell him. I don't know if you would get value for him now, though. I think
Mhm.
too many people are down on him. And so I think trying to sell him might be a little bit difficult.
That's fair.
Travion, I can see selling Travion. Like I've never been a Travion guy. I think he doesn't embrace contact. He looks to bounce runs out instead of working for those extra yards. So I think Quinshon is there to work for those extra yards. And then, with Quinshon and Travion there, I think they're there to help each other not get hurt and then make it to, the draft next year. And I do think the running back landscape in the NFL is transitioning. And, we are seeing running backs like Saquon
Mhm.
starting to maybe hit that cliff. So, now is the time to buy. Definitely for the 25 class, I could see 5 or 6 running backs get taken in day two. I think next year's class is absolutely loaded. Now,
Hmm.
someone that I'm trying to sell from that possible class is Omari and Hampton. Now, he's someone that had a really good season. I'm not
Great pick.
debating that he had a really good season, but next season he won't have Drake May, he won't have Tez Walker. Both are gone. So he's not going to see those light boxes. He's not going to see, a safety back 12, 15 yards because they're afraid Tez is going to take it deep. We're going to have Connor Harrell likely be the quarterback, and he might take over and eat some of that production for Amari and Hampton. So I'm definitely trying to sell him if I have any of his shares. And someone that I'm trying to target would be like a Caleb Jackson from LSU. It looks like he's going to be the starter there with Logan Diggs transferring out. And now's a good time too because a lot of your league mates they may not be up to date on all the happenings in the portal. So if you can get like a Caleb Jackson and try to get an extra couple of years on the college side before they go to the NFL, he's someone that I would do. Damian Martinez is someone I like more than him. If I can get a Cam Seldon thrown in with a Caleb Jackson, that would be a home run because I really like those two guys. So if I can get that for Amari and Hampton, that's who I'm selling for a Devy running back.
Yeah, I love that, and I think you hit it right on the money where he had a great season, and that's it's not saying if you have a great season sell it, but because he is losing a what QB2 of the class to majority of people, second overall pick to majority of people, maybe first overall pick. We always see those things coming at the end where it just goes out of nowhere. So yeah, because of that, that's gonna play a huge impact. Now you can look at it either way. Either he's gonna get a heavy workload and just go crazy, or he's going to get a heavy workload and we're just going to see everything go down because he's not going to be able to do that. You know, they did lose Petaway. He did go in the transfer portal and transferred over. I forgot where he was. We talked about it previously.
James Madison, I think, or Old Dominion. Old Dominion?
Oh,
James
Dominion.
Madison? One of those two.
So you know that is good. He doesn't have that there anymore, but I think this is a great season to sell. I mean, he again huge year, big year, but as you mentioned too, this RB class next year is so stacked because so many people stayed. You know where I would go get Devin Neal for him if you can because he had a better season. You know, and I love Devin Neal. I know you're a big fan too, and that'll be great there for it. So yeah, I love that pick for you.
Now, as far as the Devy landscape at a wide receiver, it's going to be changing with this deep class moving out. Who are some of your Devy wide receivers that you're trying to sell?
Barry and Brown is one. When it comes to those Kentucky wide receivers, I've always been a Dane Key guy. I know people are high on Barry and Brown, and to a lot of people, he's the wide receiver one there. I personally think Dane Key is. So I would try to sell him. He's a physical athlete. He has crisp route running. He can catch the contested catches, but if you can go get Romeo Dubs again, really, if you can go get any one of those Packer wide receivers, I really feel like they found a nice core. They might add one in this draft just because it's so deep, but they have a nice group of guys, and Romeo Dubs was a good target for Jordan Love. So if you can go get him, or honestly, we're talk about Brock Bowers being the top tight end in this draft. Guess what? They may have another one next year in Oscar Delp, and that's one of my huge buys this year as well because maybe people aren't as heavy on him or as high on him because they were so much looking at Brock Bowers and what Brock Bowers is all about that now that he's gone, they're like, oh, no one's gonna be what Brock Bowers is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Oscar Delp is, but Oscar Delp is gonna be a great tight end, possibly a tight end one of your class. So I would go get him as well. Or Emeka Ibuka. You know, going back, I get why he did he's arguably probably in that top five of that class for you. But because of that, if you can go get a first for him of maybe 2026, go do that because I don't think he's necessarily going to be that first round value. Um, and then, or if you can go get Evan Stewart, I think Evan Stewart, I know he's your wide receiver one of the class. He's my wide receiver one, and he's probably going to be in his own tier again, Oregon. So that's just me. But, you know, I think that's good. Evan Stewart, if you can go by Evan Stewart right now, I think you are doing the wisest decision of this 2024 year because it's about to be a blow up year for him.
Yeah, I agree with you on Evan Stewart. As far as Barry and Brown, yeah, it was a disappointing year for him. Kentucky did misuse him. I only, I guess you can say that looking back, but with Kentucky, they wanted to see what they had in Brown. Now, his first year, they used him up, for short area touches where he could work and yak and to create. And this past season, they gave that role to Tavion Robinson, I believe, and they used Brown more as a deep threat option, and wasn't able to he just wasn't able to do the job. And so I'm
Mm,
hoping with them bringing in Jay Macklin, that he's going to be playing out wide, and this brings Barry Brown back to the slot. But yeah, I do have questions with Brown. Is he just a manufactured touch guy where he can't run routes, he can't create separation, and he's just a speed burner? And then at the next level, he's just going to be that punt returner, that kick returner, and then he's just going to run gassers all day long. They're going to line up in slot and just have him run gassers. 15, 20-yard deep outs and just not get a look. Is he going to be that type of a player? So I do agree with that as far as on the sell. And with Mecca, I think we're on the same page because one of my sells is Carnell Tate for Ohio State. And I don't think neither of us are selling because there's not talent there. I think we're selling because there's too much talent there.
mm,
With Carnell Tate, I don't think it's incorrect to say that freshman Jeremiah Smith and Mylan Graham were better prospects than Tate a year ago. I don't think
mm,
that's incorrect to say. It is a very crowded room. So you have those three. You have Igbuka, Brandon Innes. So there's five guys there,
mm,
and we saw this past year Ohio State didn't rotate as much. And so if they don't rotate, at the end of the day, the cream will rise to the top, and I just
mhm,
believe the best receivers at Ohio State are Jeremiah Smith, Mylan Graham, and Emeka Egbuka.
mhm,
Carnell Tate is a top 10 receiver for a lot of people right now. So
mm,
if I can sell him, if I can sell him for if I if there's a manager who holds a top 4 pick in the C2C sub draft, I would trade straight up for the 101, 102, 103, 104 because if people are
mm,
valuing him as a top 10 wide receiver, I think it is not without reason that they would possibly give up their 101 to 104 to get Cardinal Tate because they can say, hey, he's proven I don't have to take a gamble on these freshmen who may or may not hit. So if you're at the 104 range, I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but
no, you're good.
if we're looking at a C2C sub draft, I mean I know there's not going to take place until like June, July and stuff, but I would say right now 101 and 102 can either be interchangeable with Micah Hudson, Jeremiah Smith.
Mhm,
103, you can argue it would be Ryan Williams, even if he ends up at Auburn. So then at 104, you can go with JoJo Trader, Mylan Graham, Nye Carr, Cam Coleman, Brian Wesco, Perry Thompson, if you want a receiver, or if you believe in Quinton Martin, he's going to be the next guy at Penn State at the running back position once Katron and Singleton go to the NFL. And then you have a very raw running back in Nate Frazier for Georgia. He's someone that has really good hands. He's someone that's possibly going to get a big workload, not this year, but in 2025. And then if you do want a quarterback, I don't suggest taking a quarterback that high, but you can always get a Dylan Raiola and see what he does and try to flip him later on. So I would try to see if I can flip Carnell Tate for a top 4 pick in the CTC sub draft, and then get one of those players, and then try to see what you have. Because for me, at the end of the day, I think Carnell Tate will be good. I just don't think he'll be great. And the other
mm,
guy that I'm trying to sell is Isaiah Bond. He just committed to Texas. Texas has a crowded room. there's so much buzz with Texas and so much buzz with Isaiah Bond and how, he did so well with a quarterback in Alabama that wasn't exactly a really good pocket passer. Just call it what it
Mhm.
was. And so him going to Texas, the hype is there. I don't like Quinn Ewers there. So if I can sell him, I will try to sell him. I'll probably try to get, if I'm looking for a Devy wide receiver, I would try to look at if I can get maybe a Matthew Golden. I know he's at Texas, but I think Matthew Golden will be the one in that room. If I can get like a Matthew Golden, if I can get a Eugene Wilson plus, a Kevin Concepcion in a plus, if I can get maybe like a Ted McMillan straight up, I would do that. So those are some that I'm
100%.
looking at for those two.
Yeah, if you can get Seth McMillan, I would do that 100%. Really for any of them. Right now, before all these guys said they were going back, he was my wide receiver 3 of the class. I need to go and double check those though with people going back. Um, with the first guy you said, Cardinal Tate, 100% agree. And Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he can go in there as the freshman and be the wide receiver 1. I think he's a great prospect to be on. I enjoyed Brandon Innes more than I did Cardinal Tate,
Me
so
too.
I was flip flop a lot for a lot of people because a lot of people didn't have Cardinal Tate over him. Um, so I think to me it'd be Cardinal Tate is the odd man out this year, and so I agree. If you can go get one of those top 4 picks, if you could get that one and get Jeremiah Smith, I would flip that all day.
Yeah.
100%. Isaiah Bond. I mean, you keep hitting on Quinn Ewers, and I agree, man. Like people that are going to be high on Quinn Ewers, even with Baxter. I mean, he may be a sell for me just because of it's scary going into the SEC that first year. They could go in there and dominate because no one's really watching that film on them because they're a new team. But I think people are high on what they did this year. They're high on that beating Alabama, thinking, "Oh yeah, we can go in there and beat all this ACT teams." Alabama went to the playoffs, but they weren't the same Alabama team as we've seen in the past. To me, they weren't as dominant. They weren't as effective necessarily on the offense. They had closer games this season. So yeah, I would sell that if you can too. A lot of those Texas players in general are a sell for me.
And then who are some of your CFF assets that you're trying to sell?
One guy is, a guy that you really put me on, but Caden Seltzer, Liberty. Great season, great CFF athlete, but that's why you want to sell him, right? To try to get like, okay, maybe I don't need this. I want to go pro. So if you can get a rookie second round, 2024 second round pick for him, I would do that just because this class is stacked at wide receivers, and you can get your running backs in the second most likely, and even maybe your Bo Nix, Michael Penix, even JJ McCarthy in the second round this year. Or if you can go trade Malachi Nelson, who just transferred to Boise State, in a possible third or fourth supplemental pick. Um, Malachi Nelson had all the hype going to USC. We thought he's going to be the next guy. He's going to be the guy after Caleb. All this great stuff. They entered the transfer portal this year and went to Boise State. So it's a tier down, definitely. And if A1 is low on that, go ahead and buy it because there's a world too where Malachi Nelson goes out there and balls and has a great CFF season and then transfers up again. And then he becomes more of a valuable asset in that 2026 class again. So Malachi Nelson, for me, if you can buy any kind of shares for him, I would, especially on a low for someone like Caden Salter, who I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a great pro back, but I know he's a great college quarterback.
Yeah, Kid Salter, if you have him and you're trying to sell him, you can get a king's ransom for him just because as a CFF asset, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback on the CFF side. So automatically, you're going to get very good value if you're trying to sell him. You could probably tear down on the college side and probably get maybe a top 12 to 15 quarterback, and you can probably try to get maybe a flex option or maybe one of those RB2s, maybe I like that Rashad White. I kind of like that because I do agree. I think a lot of people are trying to sell Rashad White, and I understand he wasn't very effective. I think his entire year, I think he averaged like what 3.6 yards a carry, but
Mm,
that offensive line didn't really do any justice.
mm,
And with Rashad White, he earned a lot of points with his catches, and I think with Baker possibly coming back, I think it would be smart to bring Rashad White back. And so I don't think he's getting replaced in Tampa. So I do think he's also a buy. So like, someone like that. If I get a CFF play, a quarterback, maybe like a top 10 to 12, 10 to 15 quarterback, Rashad White, and maybe like a third C2C sub draft and maybe like a seventh or an eighth, and then a possible fringe Devy guy, you could probably do that, because the reason why I say that is there's one league where I don't have Caden Salter, only one.
Mhm.
And in that league, I tried to trade for him. And the guy that has him, he's not competing. So I don't know why he's not trying to, get assets. But I I offered a C2C first round sub, a third round sub, a sixth round sub, and I offered a running back on the NFL side. And if you're in any of my leagues, I go zero RB. So it's one of those like a James Conner type of a running back, someone
Mhm.
that you get late because
Mhm.
you go zero RB, so you just get what's left. I
Yeah.
offer something like that, and he said no. And right there, I thought I was overpaying. I was
Oh, for
offering
sure.
all of those sub picks, and I'm in that league. I think I'm like the fifth pick, so it would have been the 105
Mhm.
in each of those rounds, and he said no. So that Caden Salter value, that is a very high value. So if you do have shares of him and you want to sell him, you probably get a king's ransom for him. So I can definitely
Good,
see that.
good thing I
For
don't. Good thing I don't have him because I'm over here just selling Malachi Nelson in the third for him. So.
a quarterback that I'm selling on CFF side was at Boise State, and that's Taylor Green. He's someone that got a lot of hype last offseason. A lot of people thought he had a legit, Devy value, but what we saw at Boise State, he's not a very good passer. He's a very instinctive runner, but him as a passer wasn't very good. Boise State benched him only to play him late because they had to, because the other quarterback got hurt. He transfers to Arkansas. There's some buzz about some excitement with him, and him going to the SEC and showing off with all those skills that he has. And my only thing is Arkansas. We saw what KJ Jefferson did last year, and he was horrible. And you can argue
Mhm.
Arkansas got worse this past off season. So
Mhm.
I don't know how Taylor Green's going to do, and so I would sell him. I mean, there's a chance where he goes out and does well, but the likelihood with him and Jaquinnen Jackson at running back and Isaiah Augustave, and they have Luke Hawes at tight end, but they don't really have any wide receivers. They have one wide receiver. His name, let me pull it up here. I think he's a four-star kid. Going through my rankings here. What's his name? I think it's like Bethel something. Ashton Bethel Roman. He's a four-star
Mhm.
kid. He's their prize for the wide receiver spot. I don't see him making an impact right away. So if I have Taylor Green, I try to sell for, I don't know, any viable CFF quarterback. I think that's fair.
Uh, yeah, no, I agree. And Boise State, I mean, they were held up by Austin Zinci and Hulini, right? They're running backs. They did have Eric McAllister there as well, wide receiver. But I agree. And to me, Arkansas did get worse. I mean, you hit that on the money as well. That personally, I mean, if you can go trade him for your KJ Jefferson, who's at UCF now, I do
Yeah.
believe. I would do that. I think KJ Jefferson's gonna have a reawakening, if you will, that he's gonna go out there and ball out. He's not gonna be a top 10 college quarterback or anything, but he's definitely gonna have a better year than he did at Arkansas. So I would go do that because I think there's more potential there for him as well. And some of these guys think, oh, I'm gonna go to the SEC and ball out. Man, you say that until you actually play in the SEC for your whole season, and then you realize, hold on, these are some big guys coming at me on that defensive front. So yeah, if you can sell him, get any kind of value for him, I would definitely do that.
Now, as far as a CFF running back, who are you trying to sell?
My biggest one is probably Penny Boone from Toledo, now going to Louisville. He just had a big year. You know, he looked great, but now going to Louisville, I would go and trade maybe for a Galvin Salchuk, running back from Oklahoma there, or even go after Harrison Whaley. That's actually one of my buys this year is Harrison Whaley. Just through 10 games, he had 947 yards and 5 TDs with 5 receptions and 66 yards. Just a great running back out there in Wyoming, and I think he's definitely a sleeper back where he got injured in the preseason. So if he has a healthy offseason, goes into the preseason, goes into the season, we see a full season of him, he can have a great year. And I think people will sleep on that. So I would try to sell Penny Boone, who I don't think has as much pro potential as Harrison Whaley may be at the next level if we see a full season of him.
Yeah, Penny Boone is that 6'1", 240 that we talk
Mm-hmm.
about with Braylon Allen. I don't know. I don't see anything in Penny Boone. I mean, I guess him going up to the ACC is okay, with Louisville, but I don't know. I'm not a 6'1", 240 guy, so I don't have much to say about him.
No.
The CFF running back that I'm trying to sell is Gavin Sawchuk. Now, at Oklahoma, he did garner pretty good amount of workload towards the end of the season, but we know Oklahoma likes to rotate their backs. Coming in, they have a true freshman, Taylor Tatum. He's a really talented running
Mm-hmm.
back. I think he's going to get some run. So I don't think Gavin Sawchuk is going to get this major role that a lot of people are thinking about. And he's starting to make some rise on the Devy ranks that I've been seeing lately. So if I could sell him, I definitely would. If it's, let me take a look at my rankings here, see what I would get and where I have him. I have him too low. If I could get like a, if I can get like a Jadon Blue, DJ Giddens, if I can get Jaden Ott, Kedrick Riscano, if I could get any combination of two of those, I probably would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not a big Gavin Sawchuk guy.
Well, I love the hit on Taylor Tatum. I agree. That's a great bet coming in for them there. And then you said Giddens too, man. Giddens, I was actually about to put Giddens for Penny Boone here as well. I think that's a very talented running back where I'd be happy with him. And I think he may gain more value as he goes into this next season as well.
Now, with Luke McCaffrey, he's accepted the invite to the Senior Bowl, so he's going to be headed to the NFL. Now, with him, he might end up going possibly early day 3. At early day 3, is he someone that you're going to invest in probably like round 3 of your drafts, or are you just going to stay completely away from him?
He's someone I'll probably stay completely away from him. I was not aware he accepted that Senior Bowl invitation. But yeah, he's someone. He's at Rice. He had a great season, but I don't see much of his tape. He's a wide receiver. I'd rather get a take a flyer on Johnny Wilson. I'd rather go after Brendan Rice, who may come later or something. So there's a lot of other guys in that wide receiver room. Right now, I have him. I have 23 wide receivers, and he is 24 now, McCaffrey. So
Okay. Now, here at the Devy Digest, what we do is we pretty much get together some player profiles, get you ready for your NFL rookie drafts, we get you ready for your C2C sub drafts, and we try to bring you a under the radar freshman. So we do have some today for you guys. The first one is Jalen Wright. He's going to be our Devy Digest player profile of the day. He's 5'11", 210 pounds. He has that home run threat speed. He is a track guy. He's been clocked at 23 miles an hour in practice. He's a very elusive runner. Good. I would say he has good agility. He's someone that is a patient runner. He has a receiving profile which this past season really helped complete his entire profile here. For me, he is my sleeper of the running back class. He's my RB6. Now, there are some things that he does need to work on. He does need to be more physical. And I do question if he's going to be like that Tony Pollard type where he's great getting 8 to 12 carries a game, but anything after 12, he starts to kind of taper off. So that is my one concern with Jalen Wright. Our CFF player profile of the day is Sam Brown, the wide receiver for Houston. He's 6'2", 195 pounds. Now Matthew Golden has left, and he's gonna be the wide receiver one in this Houston room. He earned 94 targets with Matthew Golden there, and he was used as a deep threat, but he can win on short to intermediate routes as well. The one question that we have is the new coaching staff. Willie Fritz from Tulane comes in, so we don't know what the offense will look like, but as someone that averaged almost 17 points a game for fantasy, he's someone that I'm willing to take a shot at, and he's likely available in a lot of your C2C leagues. Now, the under the radar freshman profile of the day for us is going to be wide receiver Justice Williams for Washington. He's a 6'4", 205-pound wide receiver. He's a 4-star in the composites, as high as wide receiver 22, and as low as an unranked wide receiver in the composites. He averages out to be wide receiver 61. He's my tier 5 wide receiver. Now, what I do like about him is he's a fluid runner. He just eats up the ground. He has multiple gears and he knows how to use his speed. He's a two-way player. I do like those for these lower 4-star guys. A very good route runner. He's a physical player. He will play through contact and he has strong hands. Now, he does have a pathway of early playing time. The only receiver that Washington has right now of note is Jeremiah Hunter. Now, the coaching
Mhm.
staff has left, and he does at the moment stay. We'll have to see if Jed Fish likes him and will, use him. So those are the player profiles of the day. Now, SC, let's tell me what you're working on. Tell me what kind of content we can expect coming up. I see you doing a lot, man. Not only do you do the Dynasty Pros Devy show, you're doing a weekly wrestling show on Total Apex with my man Tommy. You're
Mhm.
putting out content left and right on all these different websites. What are you currently working on, man?
Yes, sir. So, me and three other guys, shout out FF Mad Scientist, Jay Moeller, and FF Rebel, started our own theme, Fantasy Football Universe. So, right now, we're going through the 2024 rookies and doing a sneak peek on them. And then we'll go and adjust it when they actually go through their combine and do a different article for each of those rookies. So, be on the lookout for that, a different rookie each day coming out. That's the big thing. Dynasty Pros Devy Show, we do that happening with them every other Tuesday or so. And then, yeah, weekly content for wrestling with Total Apex as well. Every Sunday we're doing a show. We might end up live streaming the Royal Rumble, which is coming up next Saturday. So stay tuned for that. And then you can also find some of my work on RPO football. A little bit of a break there as the season came to a close. But here soon we'll go ahead and recap my sleeper breakouts and bust for 2024 season, 2023 season, excuse me, and see if I hit on any of those. So a lot of stuff to come. We're just now getting, started. New Year's underway, and it's a draft season, Devy season. So be on the lookout for a lot more.
It's a lot of content, man. Definitely, if you're on X, follow SC at the PPRshow.com. Now, if you like this show and you like the content that I'm putting out here, for those of you watching, you're bombarded with an entire slide of what I work on. But for those of you listening, every Sunday and Wednesday, you can expect the Devy Digest show through the league winners, airing live on YouTube and X, and then airing on Spotify and Apple every Monday and Thursday. Tuesdays, we do the Welcome to the Big House through the CFB Nation. That airs on Spotify and Apple a couple of days later. I believe the CFB Nation has their own radio station coming out, so you just download the app. It is the CFB Nation. For my written content, every Monday we drop a 2024 Devy Digest player profile to get you ready for your rookie drafts and get you aware of all of these guys. Someone like a Jalen Wright we have coming up, where I go full in depth on why he's my sleeper. Every Friday, we do a Devy Digest Freshman Friday player profile to get you ready for your C2C sub draft so you get to know who these incoming freshmen are. Every Wednesday and Saturdays, I do written content that will go through Utah, Utah State, or BYU football. We're going to get you ready for the spring camp. We're going to try to bring you some exclusive content behind the scenes, get you ready for the spring game and all of that going on. And then what else? And then we'll be back next week. But before we go, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and you can follow me at Andy_Fam1. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, give us a rate and review, and we'll see you next time on the Devy Digest.